So again, these books were written back in the guy started the experience in 1894. So that's, about 132 years that these books have been around. So in it says, the foreword in presenting the life and teachings of the Far East, the masters of the Far East, I wish to state that I was one of the research party of 11 persons that visited the Far East in 1894. During our stay there 3.5 years, we contacted the great masters of the Himalayas who aided us in translation of the records, which was of great assistance in our research work. They permitted us to enter into their lives intimately. We were thus able to see the actual workings of the great law as demonstrated by them. We call them masters, which is merely our name for them. One living the life described herein is entitled to reverence and consideration as a master. Records and manuscripts, our actual experience with the masters, were preserved. Personally, at that time, I thought the world was not ready for this message. I was an independent member of the research party. I am now publishing my notes under the title Life and Teachings of the Masters of the Far East, with the thought that the reader may accept or reject as he wishes. This book, which will be followed by others of the Sun series, gives the first year experience of the expedition in relation to the masters. It includes their teachings, which was taken by the stenographically at the time, with their permission and approved by them. The masters accepted that Buddha represented the way to enlightenment, but they clearly set forth that Christ is enlightenment, or a state of consciousness for which we are all seeking. The Christ light of every individual, therefore the light of every child that is born into the world. And that's where when you say namaste, you're recognizing that light. So anytime you want to say namaste, you are telling the person you're telling, you're recognizing their light as the same light that's inside you, that's in the trees, the rocks, the dogs, the cats, anything. Because that is the true light. It creates all things. Chapter 1. There is so much being printed at the present time regarding spiritual matters. There is such a great awakening and seeking for the truth regarding the great teachers of the world, that I am prompted to place before you my experience with the masters of the Far East. In this book, I am attempting to expound upon a new cult or religion. I am only giving a resume of our experience with the masters, in which I am undertaking to show the great fundamental truths of their teachings. These masters are scattered over a wide territory, and since our metaphysical research covered a large portion of India, Tibet, China, and Persia, no attempt to authenticate these experiences made. There were 11 practical, scientifically trained men in our party. The greater part of our lives had been spent in research work. We had been accustomed to accept nothing unless it was fully verified, and we never took anything for granted. We went thoroughly skeptical and came away thoroughly convinced and converted. So much so that 3 of our number went back determined to stay until they are able to perform the works and live the life just as the masters are living today. Those who so greatly assisted us in our work requested that their names be withheld in the event of our publishing the expedition memoirs. I shall relate nothing but the facts as they happen using as nearly as possible the words and expressions of the people I met and with whom I was thrown in daily contact during the expedition. It was one of the conditions of the agreement before taking up the work that we should at first accept as fact everything we witnessed, and no explanation should be demanded until we had gone into the work thoroughly, taken their lessons, lived and observed their daily lives. We accompanied these masters, lived their lives, and determined for ourselves. We were at liberty to be with them as much as we liked, ask any question we wished, use our own deduction in getting results, and finally accept what we see as fact or fake. There was no effort at any time to influence our judgment in any way. They wished us to become thoroughly convinced before we gave credence to anything we saw or heard. Therefore, I will place these happenings before the reader and ask them to accept or reject as they see fit. We had been in India about 2 years during regular routine research work when I met with the master known in these writings as Emil, capital E-M-I-L. While walking along a street in the city where we were staying, my attention was attracted to a crowd. I saw the center of interest was one of the street magicians, a fakar, F-A-K-I-R-S, that are so common in this country. As I stood there, I noticed beside me an elderly man who was not of the same caste of those about him. He looked at me and asked if I had been long in India. I replied, about 2 years. He asked, are you English? I answered, American. I was surprised and very much interested to find one who spoke English. I asked him what he thought of the performance. Then going on, he answered, oh, it is a common occurrence in India. These fellows are called fakars, magicians, or hypnotists. They are all the names imply, but underneath it all is a deeper spiritual meaning that few discern, and good will come of it someday. It is but the shadow of the thing from which it springs. It has caused a great deal of comment, and those commenting upon it seem never to have reached the true meanings, for there certainly is truth underneath it all. Here we parted, and I saw him only occasionally during the next 4 months. Our expedition was confronted by a problem which gave us a great deal of trouble. In the midst of our worries, I again met Emil. Immediately, he asked what was bothering me, and I began talking about our problem. I wondered at this, for I felt that none of our party had mentioned it outside of our little circle. His familiarity with the situation was such that I felt the whole matter was known to him. He explained that he had a certain insight into the affairs and that he would endeavor to help. Within a day or two, the matter was cleared up, leaving us without a problem. We wondered at this, but with other things to occupy our time, soon forgot. As other problems came up, it became a habit with me to talk them over with Emil. It seemed that as soon as I discussed our troubles with him, they would cease to exist. My assistants had talked with Emil, but I had said little to them about him. By the time I had read a number of books on Hindu lore selected by Emil, and I was fully convinced that he was one of the adepts, my curiosity was keenly aroused, and I was becoming more deeply interested each day. One Sunday afternoon, Emil and I were walking in the fields when he called my attention to a pigeon circling overhead and casually remarked that the bird was looking for him. He stood perfectly still, and in a few minutes the bird alighted upon his outstretched arm. He said the bird has a message from his brother in the north. This proved to be a fellow worker who had not reached the attainment whereby he could communicate directly, so he took this means. We later found the masters are able to communicate with each other instantly by thought transference, or as they call it, a force much more subtle than either electricity or wireless. I then began to ask questions, and Emil showed me that he was able to call the bird to him and direct their flight while they were in the air, that the flowers and trees would nod to him, and that the wild animal would come to him fiercely. He parted two jackals that were fighting over a body of a smaller animal that they had killed and were feeding upon. When he approached them, they stopped fighting and put their heads in his outstretched hand in perfect trust, then resumed their meal in quiet. He even gave me one of the young wild creatures to hold in my hand. He then said to me, "This is not the mortal self, the self you see that is able to do these things. It is the truer, deeper self. It is what you know as God, God within me, God the omnipotent one working through me. Well, that does these things. Of myself, the mortal self, I can do nothing. It is only when I get rid of the outer entirely and let the actual, the I am, speak and work and let great love of God come forth that I can do these things that you have seen. When you let the love of God pour through you to all things, nothing fears you and no harm can befall you." Every day during this time I had lessons with Emil. He would suddenly appear in the room, even if I had taken special care to lock the door before retiring. At first his appearance at will disturbed me, but I soon saw that he took it for granted that I understood. I became accustomed to his ways and left my door open so that he could come and go as he pleased. This confidence seemed to please him. I could not understand all his teachings and could not accept them fully, nor was I able, with all I saw while in the East, to fully accept at the time. It required years of meditation to bring me to the realization of the deep spiritual meanings of these people's lives. Their work is accomplished without ostentation and in perfect childlike simplicity. They know the power of love to protect them, and they cultivate it until all nature is in love with them and befriends them. Thousands of common people are killed annually by serpents and wild animals, yet these masters have so brought forth the power of love in themselves that serpents and wild animals do not injure them. They live at times in the wildest jungles and sometimes lay their bodies down before a village to protect it from the ravages of wild animals, and no harm befalls the village or themselves. When occasion requires, they walk on water, go through fire, travel in the invisible, and do many other things that we have been accustomed to look upon as miracles performed only by one supposed in some way to possess supernatural powers. There is a striking resemblance between the life and teachings of Jesus of Nazareth and these masters as exemplified in their daily lives. It has been thought impossible for man to derive his daily supply directly from the universe, to overcome death, and to perform the various so-called miracles that Jesus performed while on earth. The masters prove that all of these are their daily life. They supply everything needed for their daily wants directly from the universe, including food, clothing, and money. They have so far overcome death that many of them now living are over 500 years of age, as was conclusively proven by their records. There are comparatively few of these masters in India, other cults seeming to be but offshoots of their teachings. They realize their number is limited and that only a few scholars can come to them. In the invisible, however, they can reach almost unlimited numbers, and it seems to be the greater works of their lives to reach out into the invisible and help all who are receptive to their teachings. The teaching of Emil laid the foundation for the work which we were to take up years later in our third expedition to these countries, during which time we lived with the masters continuously for 3.5 years, traveled with them, and observed their daily lives and work throughout the Far East. Chapter 2. For the outside of the third expedition in which we took up the metaphysical research work, our little party assembled at Portal, a small village in the remote part of India. I had written Emil that we were coming, but did not write the object of the trip, nor did I even mention the number in our party. Much to our surprise, we found complete preparations had been made for our entire party, and that Emil and his associates knew our complete plans. Emil had rendered us a remarkable service while in southern India, but the service rendered from this time on surpassed all descriptions. To him and the wonderful souls we met, I wish to give all credit for the success of the entire undertaking. We arrived at Portal, from where the expedition was to start late in the afternoon, December 22nd, 1894, and found we were to start Christmas morning upon what was to be the most memorable expedition of our whole lives. I never shall forget the few words Emil said to us that morning. These words were delivered in fluent English, although the speaker did not boast an English education, and he had never been out of the Far East. He began by saying, "'Tis Christmas morning. To you, I suppose, it is the day Jesus of Nazareth, the Christ, was born. To you the thought must come that he was sent to remit sins. To you he must typify the great meditator between you and God. You seem to appeal to Jesus as a mediator between you and your God, who seems to be the stern and at times the angry God sitting off somewhere in a place called heaven, located where I do not know, except it be in man's consciousness. You seem to be able to reach God only through his less austere and more loving Son, the great and noble one, whom we all call blessed, and whose advent into the world this day commemorates. To us this day means more. To us this day not only means the advent into the world of Jesus Christ, but also the birth, typifies the birth of Christ in every human consciousness. This Christ Mass Day means the birth of the great Master and Teacher, great liberator of mankind from material bondage and limitation. To use this great soul came on earth to show more fully the way to the real God, the great omnipotent, omnipresent, omniscient one, to show that God is all goodness, all wisdom, all truth, all in all, the great Master, who came to this world this day. We sent to show more fully that God not only dwells within us, but within us that he never is, nor can be, separated from us or any of his creation, that he is always a just and loving God, that he is all things, knows all, and is all truth. Had I the understanding of all men, it is beyond my power to express to you, even in a humble way, what his holy birth means to us. We are fully convinced, and we hope you also will see, that the great master and teacher came to us that we might have a fuller understanding of life here on earth, that all mortal limitations are but man-made, and no other way should they be interpreted. We know that the greatest of all teachers came to show more fully that the Christ in him, and through whom he did his mighty works, is the same Christ that lives in you, in me, and in all mankind. And we can, by applying his teachings, do all the works that he did and greater works. We believe that Jesus came to show more fully that God is the great and only cause of all things, that God is all. You may have heard it said that we believe Jesus received his early training among us. Perhaps some of us do believe. Let that be as it is. Does it matter whether his training came from among us or as a direct revelation from God, the one source where all things really exist? For when an idea came from God's mind, has been contacted by one man and sent out through the spoken word, cannot one or all again contact that thought in the universe? Because one has contacted the idea and sent it out, it does not follow that it is this particular possession. If he did appropriate and hold it, where would be room for receiving? To receive more, we must give out what we have received. If we withhold what we receive, stagnation will follow, and we will be like the wheel that generates power from the water and suddenly, of its own volition, begin to withhold the water which it is using. It will soon find itself stifled with inert water. It is only when the water is allowed to flow freely through that it is of value to the wheel to create power. Just so with man, when he contacts God's idea, he must give them out in order to receive the benefits from them. He must allow all to do the same, that they may grow and develop as he is growing. I am of the opinion that what Jesus taught came to him as a direct revelation from God, as it no doubt has come to our great teacher. Are not all things of God? And whatever one human being can do, cannot all do. We believe you will be convinced that God is ever willing and ready to reveal himself to all men as he has revealed himself to Jesus and others. The only requisite necessary is for each one to be willing to let God come forth. We believe with all sincerity that all are created equal, that all men are one man, and that the mighty works done by Jesus can and will be done by all. You will see there is nothing mysterious about these works. The mystery is only in man's mortal concept of them. We fully realize you have come to us with minds more or less skeptical. We trust you will live with us and know us as we really are, our work and the results accomplished. We leave you to accept or reject as you will. So when I read these, you decide if it's real or not. Like I say, I'm just sharing information. And there's nothing but truth in these books. You decide for yourself. Chapter 3. We left this village for Asma, a smaller one, about 90 miles distance. Emil assigned 2 younger men to accompany us. These men, fine, direct specimens of Hindu type, were to have charge of the entire expedition, the perfect ease and poise with which they accomplished their tasks, surpassing any of our former experiences. For convenience of identification, I am calling these 2 men Jast and Nipro. Emil was the one that received us and looked after our welfare at the village from which we took our departure. He had many more years' experience than the others. Jast was the executive head of the expedition, while Nipro was his assistant and saw that all orders were carried out. Emil sent us away with a few remarks in which he said, "You are about to start on an expedition with these two men, Jas and Nipru, to accompany you. As you travel, it will take about 5 days to journey to your next important stopping place, about 90 miles distance. I will tarry here for the time because it will not be necessary for me to consume that time to cover the distance. But I will be there to greet you. I order I wish to ask that you leave one of your party here in order to make observations and collaborate what may happen. In this way, time will be saved and he will be able to join the expedition no later than 10 days hence. We simply ask him to watch and report what he sees. We started with Jast and Nipro in charge of the expedition, and I wish to say that more business-like arrangements could not well be imagined. Every detail was complete and swung into line with the rhythm and precision of music. This harmony was maintained throughout the entire expedition, which lasted 3.5 years. I wish here to add my impressions of Jast and Nipro. Jast was a fine, outstanding Hindu, kind of efficient, with no bluff or bluster. Every order he gave was almost of a monotone and executed with precision and snap that caused us to wonder. From the very outset, we could see a finesse of character that caused much comment. Nipro, a wonderful character, he was here, there, and everywhere. Always cool, collective, and marvel of efficiency. There was always the same calm, accompanied by quiet precision of movement, with wonderful power to take and execute. This was so marked that every member of the expedition commented upon it. Our chief remarked, "Those fellows are wonderful. It is a relief to find people who can think and execute." We arrived at the appointed village about 4 o'clock of the 5 days, and there was Emil to greet us, as he had agreed. Can you imagine our amazement? We were quite certain we had come by the only travel route and by the swiftest mode of locomotion in that country, except as a courier go. They travel in relays and go night and day. Here was a man well advanced in years, as we thought, and one we felt would nowise be able to negotiate a journey of 90 miles in less than it required us to do the same. Yet here he was. Of course, we all tried to question at once and were eager to hear. These were his words. I said when we departed that I would be here to greet you. I am here. I wish to call your attention more fully to the fact that the man in his right domain is limitless. Now knows no limit of time and space. Man, when he knows himself, is not obliged to toil wearily along 5 days to accomplish 90 miles. Man in his right state can accomplish any distance. It matters not the magnitude instantly. A moment ago I was in the village from which you departed 5 days ago. What you saw was my body still reposed there. Your associate, whom you left in the village, will tell you that. Until a few moments before 4 o'clock, I conversed with him, stating that I would go to greet you as you would arrive here about this hour. What you saw as my body is still there, and your associate still beholds it, although it is at present inactive. This was done simply to show you that we are able to leave our bodies and greet you at any appointed place, at any specific time. The two who accompanied you could have accomplished the journey as I have. In this way, you will more readily realize that we are only ordinary humans of the same source as you, that there is no mystery, but that we have developed the powers given all by the Father, the great omnipotent one, more fully than you have. My body will remain where it is until night. Then I will bring it here, and your associate will proceed on his way here as you did, arriving in due time. After a day's rest, we will journey to a small village, one day off, where we will tarry one night, then return here and meet your associate to see what his report will be. We will assemble this evening in the lodge. In the meantime, farewell. In that evening afterwards, we had assembled. Emil, without opening the door, suddenly appeared in our midst and said, "You have seen me appear in this room, as you would say, by magic. Let me say there is no magic about it. Here is a simple experiment which you could behold. You can see this conscientially. You will believe. Kindly gather round so that you can see. We have a small glass of water, which one of your numbers has just brought from the spring. You see that the minute particles of ice is forming in the very center of the water. You see it gather to itself, particle by particle, more ice until now the whole of the water in the glass is frozen. What has happened? I held the central atom of the water in the universe until they became formed, or, in the outer words, I lowered the vibration until they became ice, and all other particles formed around them until the whole has become ice. You can apply this to little glass, the tub, the pond, the lake, the sea, the whole mass of water on the earth. What would happen? All would be frozen, would it not? To what purpose? None. You ask by what authority? I say by using a perfect law. But in this case, to what end? Nothing as no good has been accomplished or could be accomplished. Had I gone on determined to carry this out fully, what would have happened? The reaction. To whom? To me. I know the law, and what I express returns to me as truly as I express it. Therefore I express only the good, and the good returns to me only as good. You can readily see that had I persisted in freezing, the cold would have reacted upon me long before I had accomplished the end, and I would, in reaping the harvest of my desire, have been frozen. Whereas, if I express the good, I reap the harvest of my good eternally. My appearance in the room tonight may be explained in this way. In the little room where you left me, I held my body in the universe. By raising its vibration, it returned to the universe, or as we say, returning it to the universe where all substance exists. Then through my I am, my Christ conscious, I held my body in my mind until its vibrations were lowered and it took form right here in the room, and you could see it. Wherein there is any mystery. Am I not using the power or the law given me by the Father through the beloved Son? Is not this Son you and I and all mankind? Wherein lies the mystery? There is none. Consider the faith represented by the mustard seed. It comes to us from the universe through the Christ within, which has already been born within us all. As a minute speck, it enters through the Christ, our superconscious mind, the place of receptivity within ourselves. Then it must be carried to the mount, or highest within ourselves, the very top of the head. It is held there. We must then allow the Holy Spirit to descend. Now comes the admission, thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, with all thy strength, and with all thy mind. Think. Does that mean come, heart, soul, strength, mind? Is there anything to do with this point but to turn it all over to God, the Holy Spirit, the whole I Spirit in action? This Holy Spirit comes in many ways, perhaps as tiny entities tapping and seeking admittance. We must accept and allow this Holy Spirit to come in, unite with the minute point of light or seed of knowing and revolve around it and adhere to it just as you saw the particles of ice adhere to the central particle. It will grow in form, particle by particle, circle by circle, just as the ice multiply and express that seed of knowing until you are able to say to the mountain of difficulties, be thou removed and cast into the sea, and it will be done. Call this fourth dimension or what you wish. We call it God in expression through the Christ in us. It is in this way that Christ was born. Mary, the great mother, perceived the ideal. The ideal was held in the mind, then conceived in the soil of her soul, held there for a time there, then brought forth or born as the perfect Christ child, the firstborn, the only begotten, the Son of God. He was nourished and protected, given the very best of the mother, watched over and cherished until he grew from childhood into manhood. It is thus the Christ comes to all of us, first as an idea planted in the soil of our soul, the central part where God is, held in the mind as the perfect ideal, then brought forth or born as the perfect child, the Christ consciousness. You who have seen what has been accomplished here doubt your own eyes. I do not blame you. I get the thought of hypnotism from the minds of some. My brothers, is there one here who feels that he does not have the power to exercise every God-given faculty that he has seen brought forth tonight? Do you think for a moment that I am in any way controlling your thoughts or vision? Do you think that I could, if I would, cast the hypnotic spell over any or all of you? For did you not all see? It is not recorded in your own great book that Jesus entered a room with the door closed. He just came in as I have done. Do you think for a moment that Jesus, the great master and teacher, needed in any way to hypnotize? He used his own God-given power as I have done tonight. Let me say that I have done nothing but what each one of you can do. Not only you, but every child that is or has been born into this world or universe has the same power to do just what you have seen accomplished this night. I wish to get this clearly before your minds. Let me also say that you are individuals, that you are not personalities, that you are free will, not automatons. Jesus did not need to hypnotize, and we do not need to hypnotize. Doubt us all. Doubt us all you wish until you are fully satisfied as to our honesty. Put the idea of hypnotism away for the time, or at least let it lie passive until you have gone deeper into the work. All we ask is that you keep it an open mind. Okay, I'm going to read chapter 4, then I'll stop. Chapter 4. As the next stage of our journey was to be in the nature of the side trip, we left the main part of our outfit and the next morning proceeded on our way to a small village about 20 miles distance, with only Jast accompanying us. The trail was not of the best at the times, was very difficult to follow as it wound through the dense forest, particularly to that country. We arrived at our destination just before sunset that evening, tired and hungry, as we had pushed on all day with only a short noonday halt for lunch. The country in general was rough and uneven. The trail seemed practically unusable. It was necessary to cut our way through occasional thickets of traveling vines. At each delay, Jas seemed impatient. We wondered at this, for he held previously seemed so poised. This was the first and only time during the 3.5 years he was with us that he was not the same cool, collective Jas that had started with us. Later, we did not wonder at his unrest in the light of what was transpired. We entered the little village, about 200 inhabitants, 1/2 hour before sunset, when it was known that Jas was with us. I believe every villager, old and young, every pet and domestic animal came to greet us. While we were the objects of more or less curiosity, it was immediately noted that Jas was the center of interest. Greeted by all with the utmost reverence, after a few moments he said a word to the villagers, and all but a few returned to their usual duties. Jas turned to us and asked if we wished to go with him while the camp was being prepared for the night. 5 of our party said they were tired after the day's journey and wished to rest. The remainder of us followed Jas and the handful of villagers toward the far side of the clearing that surrounded the village. After crossing the clearing, we had gone but a short distance into the jungle when we came upon a form of a man laying upon the ground as though dead. That was our impression at first glance. The second glance, however, showed that the repose suggests calm sleep rather than death. We stood staring through transfixed, for we saw that the figure lying on the ground was Jas. Suddenly, as Jas walked towards it, the figure became animated and rose to a standing position. As the figure and Jas stood face to face for an instant, there was no mistaking the identity. It was Jas. All saw that it was he. Then instantly the Jas we had known had disappeared, and there was but one figure standing before us. Of course, all this was accomplished in much less time than it takes to tell, and the wonder was that not one of us questioned. The 5 who had been left behind at camp came running without a signal from any of us. We afterwards asked them why they came. The answers were, "We don't know. The first we knew, we were all on our feet running to you. We simply do not know why we did it. None of us recall any signals. We found ourselves running in your direction before anyone realized we were doing it." One of our number remarked, "My eyes are open so wide that I saw far beyond the veils of death, and the wonder that stands revealed are beyond conception." Another said, "I see the whole world overcoming death." How vivid the words came back. The last enemy, death, shall be overcome. It is not this fulfillment of these words. What pygmies are our mere intellects in comparison with this gigantic but simple understanding, and yet we have dared to look upon ourselves as giants of intellect. Why, we are mere babies. I just begin to see the meaning of "ye must be born again." How true is the words. I leave the reader to imagine our surprise, our bewilderment. Here was a man with whom we had been in daily contact, by whom we had been served daily, that was able to lay his body down for the protection of others and go on and serve so very efficiently. Could it do otherwise than recall, "He that is greatest amongst you shall be servants or shall serve"? I think there was not one among us but from that moment lost all fear of death. These people are accustomed to laying a body down before the village in the jungle of the country infested with marauding men and animals, and that village is as safe from the ravages of men and animals as though it were in a civilized country. It was very evident that Jas's body had been lying where we found it for a considerable time. The hair had grown long and bushy, and in it were the nests of little birds particular to the country. The birds had built their nests, reared their young, and the young had flown away, thus giving unmistakable evidence of the time the body had been in the position and inactive. These birds are timid and will abandon their nests at the slightest disturbance. This shows the great love and trust of little birds. The excitement was so great that no one in our camp except Jas slept at night. He slept like a child. At intervals, one or the other of our party would sit up and look over towards where Jas was sleeping, then lie down again, saying, "Pinch me to see if I am really awake." Occasionally a more forceful expression was used. So I'll carry on tomorrow from chapter 4. So how's everybody? These books are going to really, really make you think a lot. And that's what the reality is all about using your mind, about gaining knowledge, about understanding.